Greg uses the analogy, it's like leaving a grenade under the dead body. So in this episode, we're going to talk about wills. I think quite a common narrative I come across is people sort of think it's a lot simpler than it really is. If you were to pass away, we sort of think, okay, we'll just go to our kids or our partner, or, it'll just sort of work itself out. But the reality is, there's been instances where it's called probate, where they take the time to confirm the legitimacy of the will or to find out if there's a will out there. And that can take a long process. I've heard of years or 6 months, or it's quite a long time before people can actually access the money that they need. So to help mitigate against this, you want to start thinking ahead and you want to look at a will. And basically what a will is, just sets out how you want things to play out when you pass away. So there's a few things. You've got an executor and a trustee. So the executor is the one that starts with the probate. So it starts the process of the will and administering it. Then you've got the trustee. The trustee is the person that actually executes on the demands of the will. You can actually have more than one person be an executor or a trustee, or you can have one be both. The most important thing is they understand where the will is, they understand their responsibilities, and it's really clear communication. So with your family, you really want to sit down and make it clear. Greg uses the analogy, it's about like leaving a grenade under the dead body. So when people pass away, everyone's affected in a huge way because they didn't think about it. Maybe they had a fallout with a child, so they've excluded it, so they weren't really communicating with them, so they expected it, and then there's this huge fight between the siblings when they pass away, and it's just not something you want to do. So it's one thing to have the will, it's another thing to have that clear communication channel where everyone understands how it works and why they've set it up. The other thing to think about is you want to update at least every 5 years, and also if there's a significant change in circumstances. So for example, if you get married and you've already done a will, then the legitimacy of the will is in question because the marriage is a change in event. So you want to make sure that it's continually updated and changed. The other thing is you might think, okay, well, everyone's going to be looked after if I pass away, but the government actually have a formula where they work out how it's distributed, and it might not be in the favor that you want. So really, there's some simple ways you can do it. They used to work calls, you'll be able to fill out a will, but you want to go to someone that's a professional and think of the big picture, and ideally you'd do it with the enduring powers of attorney. And how the will works is if you sign a copy of a will, it's the most recent copy that will be used in the administration. There are people that might try and challenge that. I've heard of a story where they had a will and then they had a partner, and they were really clear that they wanted the will structured a certain way, but then when they had this partner, they started developing poor health, and the challenge was like, okay, they've got this poor health, but they've signed a new will. Is that will legitimate? And eventually the doctor said that it was, but then they had an external witness come in that was a specialist in the condition that person had, which was, I believe, in dementia. So this specialist actually overruled the ruling by the doctor because of looking at the notes. So even though the doctor was there, talked to the person, understood everything about that person, and felt they could make that decision, it was actually overruled by a specialist. So you really want to be proactive. You think, okay, I'm not going to deal with this until I get old, but you could put in that very situation where the legitimacy of the will is in question and the people you really care about aren't being looked after in the way that you intended. So that's the idea of a will. In the description, there'll be a few places you can look to learn a little bit more about it, and also places you can go. So with that, thanks guys.